Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. We are very excited to have you today. We have three experts that are going to be speaking on planning, scheduling, and sustainability, getting started and landing opportunities. Located in New York City with a presence around the world, GBRI is a USGBC education partner, AIA education provider, and an education partner for various other organizations, including the UN SDGs, CHIPS, Rhode Island Energy Efficiency Council, and the Project Control Expo, the world's largest project controls expo. We believe a truly sustainable future must also be an equitable one, where every human is treated equally and fairly. Our mission is to make sustainability, health, and wellness education available and affordable to everyone around the world. With hundreds of sustainability courses surrounding the topics of energy, water, LEED, net zero, green schools, energy modeling, daylighting, BIM, and health and wellness, just to name a few, Learning Hub at GBRI is your one-stop shop for all your sustainability education needs. And GBRI is a proud partner of the United Nations on its 2030 agenda, where we create free courses and social experiments related to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals that you see listed here. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. Today's webinar is a gamified event, meaning we will have an interactive quiz elements throughout the session and a fun Kahoot at the end that you can participate in from your smartphone. This webinar will also be posted on demand within 24 hours, and we will issue a certificate of completion to all participants. And today's session has also been approved for one HSWLU through AIA. And if you are hoping to earn LEED or WELL CE credits as well, we will send the details needed to self-report that after today's session. And just a couple of things I'd like to remind you all of. So we have muted all attendees to limit the background noise. And I would encourage you to post your questions in the Q&A or chat box. We will have a short Q&A at the end of today's webinar, and so we will save those questions for the end of the session. So with that, let's go ahead and do a quick test. If you could enter which part of the universe you are joining us from today, you can enter that into the chat or questions box. I myself am joining from Texas. I see lots of different locations. We have Florida. I saw somebody from Poland earlier, Egypt, India. Argentina, Colorado, Toronto, Mexico, New York. So it looks like we have a wide variety of people joining from all over the world today. And you can go ahead and keep entering those answers into the chat box or questions box. We also have another question that we would like you all to answer, and that is, how many of you are project control professionals? So if you want to enter your answer also in the chat or question box. Great, I see that we have lots of project control professionals joining us today, so wow. All right, so with that, you can keep entering your answers into the question and chat box. With that, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our moderator for today's session, Mike Kalita. He is a executive director here at GBRI and a career construction management executive with 40 years of federal, state, and local government experience managing military, school, and transportation projects. His transportation experience includes the New York City Monahan Train Hall project, where he organized and led the pre-opening readiness exercises, and the Long Island Railroad East Side Access Project, which is the largest active transportation infrastructure project in the United States. And he served as the program executive for Construction. He is a professional engineer in New York and is a certified lead AP professional. He graduated from Manhattan College with a BE in civil engineering and a MBA in management from the University of Illinois, and then also an MS in civil engineering. So is a frequent lecturer and a mentor for both the young engineers and small businesses. So with that, welcome, Mike.
Thank you, Felicia. Hello, everyone. Boy, it's great to be here with everyone, and we certainly appreciate everyone signing on today from all over the world. We love the outreach that we're providing to you, and we certainly appreciate your interest and feedback. So let's jump with the next slide. So those of us in the United States know, back in November 2021, the US government passed a $1 trillion infrastructure bill, which will be the largest infusion of federal dollars into infrastructure projects in the United States, and that will touch nearly every facet of our lives and the economy. With more projects come new job opportunities across the board, including in the planning sector. And today we're going to talk about those opportunities and how you might take advantage of them. As the old adage goes, prior proper planning prevents poor performance. And never is that more true than in the area of construction projects. And the role of a qualified scheduler is invaluable for prior proper planning. Qualified project schedulers are in huge demand today as industries get back to work following a brief pandemic break. Our agenda today, we're going to talk about 5 different topics. The first one is planning versus scheduling. The second one is planning, scheduling, and sustainability. And you'll learn what the tie is between the three. The next topic is the tools and software programs that scheduling professionals use. And then we're going to talk about scheduling job opportunities and the different types of positions that are available to scheduling and project controls professionals. And then finally, we're going to talk about GBRI and scheduling and advanced training opportunities that are available through our through GBRI. So in terms of planning versus scheduling, let me just begin by saying that projects begin in a planning phase, and that's more about the what, right? What are we actually going to do? What is the scope? And then how are we going to get that done? And then scheduling comes next. Once we have an answer to the how and the what, scheduling allows us to define who does the work, how the work gets done sequentially, and together planning and scheduling becomes an integral part of project management. Let's go on to the next one. I want to give everyone my sense as to the importance of planning and scheduling from the role that I recently had as a program executive on the East Side Access project. Make no mistake about it, folks. Program executives like myself rely on a team of scheduling and project controls professionals to ensure projects maintain on time and on budget objectives. It's true, it doesn't always happen, but I can tell you, I've never seen a project on time and within budget without having relied on a professional scheduler and project controls person. And throughout today's program, you're going to hear from Jez and Rajesh, both of whom worked with me at the MTA on the East Side Access project and have tons of experience in this regard. So briefly stated, as Felicia said earlier, the East Side Access Project brings Long Island Railroad train service to a second terminal in the central business district of Manhattan here in New York City. It's an $11 billion project. It will benefit over 160,000 customers. It involved 8 miles of new tunneling, culminating in an 8-track new terminal below the existing Grand Central Terminal. It'll be the largest new terminal opened in the United States since the 1930s. And I'm happy to report by the end of this year, this project will come into fruition, and it will change the transportation and commuting patterns of virtually millions of New Yorkers, not only because of this project, but because of the follow-on projects that this project will allow to take place. And if we go to the next slide, this will just give you a sense of the scale. Those of you who are familiar with Grand Central Terminal in New York City, it's a 2-level terminal, and you can see it shown here under Park Avenue towards the right of the picture. There it is. So the Metro North upper and lower levels, where train service comes in from New York as well as Connecticut. The East Side Access Project built 2 train caverns below, about 150 feet below street level and below all of Metro North's infrastructure, to allow Long Island Railroad to have an 8-platform operation that will serve nearly 100,000 passengers a day. And as you can see, those terminal caverns are connected to a passenger concourse under Vanderbilt Avenue, from which passengers will then exit to the streets above. Fully 50% of Long Island Railroad passengers who go to Manhattan have ultimate destinations that are best served at GCT. Okay, let's go on to the next. So you've heard me talk briefly about the importance of planning and scheduling through the eyes of a program executive. I'm happy to introduce Rajesh Sake, who's going to give you his opinion on the importance of planning and scheduling from the perspective of a senior schedule. Raj is a construction professional with more than 17 years of experience in project controls, scheduling, cost controls, delay analysis, forensic analysis, claims, and risk analysis. He's been associated with MCSS for 9 years and is currently the acting project controls director for MTA on the East Side Access Project. Raj has a bachelor's degree in civil engineering and a master's degree in construction management from Texas A&M University in College Station. He's also PMI certified project management professional. Rajesh believes great things are often built on a simple concept, and so is scheduling. The challenge lies in applying it to complex projects without compromising the simplicity. Raj is passionate about teaching and has trained more than 100 professionals, including project engineers, field engineers, new recruits, graduate students, and project managers. He works as an adjunct faculty in NJIT's Executive Education Department on an as-needed basis. I'm pleased to introduce Raj, who will take you through the next component of today's program.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Mike. It's nice to see such a huge gathering interested in hearing about scheduling. And let's go through, let's take a step back and talk about the basics. So what is scheduling? So I feel scheduling is simple, not because I've been doing this for quite some time, but it's because I truly believe we are all schedulers at some level. We plan our lives, we plan our careers all the time. We plan a vacation, we plan our days, we plan our commutes. We do it all the time. It's all on our mind all the time. Everyone does it. So I believe we are all schedulers. Think about this. If you like to watch movies, you always think about, okay, what do I watch next? If you like to read, maybe you think about, what do I read next? Or if you're just bored, you probably think, what do I do next? That is it. Basically, that's the key concept of scheduling. Next slide. The key concept of planning and scheduling is to figure out what's next. So that is all scheduling is about. It's not rocket science. It's simple. As I said, scheduling is simple. And, when you talk about planning and scheduling, as Mike mentioned earlier, there is a fine difference between planning and scheduling, although it's used interchangeably across the industry. They say planners and schedulers as synonyms. They use it as synonyms, but there is a fine difference. Planning is actually what defines what needs to be done and how it can be done. And scheduling adds time and resource dimensions to the plan. Talking about the definition of a schedule, schedule is like a roadmap to complete a project. If you think of a project, if your project is a road trip, it tells you which road to take, how long to stay on that road, where to turn, and it basically takes you to the destination. And it tells you what needs to be done, when it should be performed, and who will perform. So that's the schedule, and it's a very important project management tool. And, think about the example I gave earlier. We plan our commute all the time, right? So if I were to plan, prepare a schedule for my commute or a day, this is how I would do it. I would think of everything I want to do during the day. List everything on a paper and figure out which order I want to do it. And once I lay it out on the paper, I see that not all the tasks or not everything I want to do during the day is important or is sequential. Sometimes there are things which I can do while doing something else. So if you're looking at the screen, let's say I wake up in the morning and get ready for work. Right, I can concurrently I can switch on the coffee machine and let it brew. That's a concurrent task. So I don't have to wait for the coffee to be ready to get ready for work. So things like that. And then I walk to the station or drive to the station, take the train, and while on the train, I'm doing one task already. I'm going to the city to work. But I also spend some time reading a book. So that's, again, another concurrent activity, which is not impacting my travel. And then when I get to work, I work during the day and then return home. So that's like a day. I plan my day all the time. We all do that. And when you think about adding which train to take, when to get to work, and when to get back home, that becomes a schedule. So that's how you do the schedules, and that's how simple the schedules are. And you just have to apply the same concept even on the larger projects. You just have to be careful not to compromise on the simplicity of this concept. So you always have to think about what is coming next. What can I do along with this task? So that's how you lay out a schedule. Let's talk about why do we need scheduling. So, as I said earlier, and Mike also mentioned earlier, it's a key aspect of project management. And And it's often neglected by many project managers. Think it's unnecessary paperwork, it's complicated, or sometimes they even feel it's boring. But the times are changing. Now I see across the industry, I see project managers who are educated in scheduling. They see the importance of schedules, and they see that they cannot plan everything in their head. You have to put it on the paper and see how to reach the goal, how to reach the destination. So basically, the schedules support supports and they empower project managers with information. That's what they need to build a successful project. And it's even more important when you're talking about mega $1 million projects. And once you have a cleanly built schedule and you do proper updates, that become the key basis for to negotiate claims. Like whether you're a contractor or a client, you have to set up yourself for when you get into claims, you have to have your position ready. So for that, you have to have proper scheduling, which is performed on a regular basis. It's not like you do scheduling once in 6 months, and you cannot afford to leave money on the table. So you basically have to do the scheduling on a regular basis, build your case, and have your position ready if in case you get into claims on the project. So that becomes key basis. And even more, now scheduling is mandated by many agencies. Many agencies want you to do scheduling, and they even in some contracts they even mention the tools that are required, or similar tools that are required to do the scheduling. So that's how important the scheduling is now in the construction contracts or in any project in general. That's how important the schedules are. So let's think of a project in general. Any project, whether it is a small project or a big project, they go through a certain development cycle, which can be grouped into 4 different stages: initiating, planning, closing, executing, and closing. So across all these 4 stages, you do during initiation and planning, you do planning. You basically as I mentioned earlier, you figure out what needs to be done and how long it's going to take and how that can be done. That's what you figure out in the planning stage. That's what you do in the initiating and planning stage. And in the next 2 stages, execution and the closing, that's where you, as I mentioned a little while ago, that's where you do the schedule updates. You maintain what's going on the project, and if there are any unforeseen events or foreseen events or changes, you keep track of all that. So basically, you prepare a plan during the planning stage, and the monitor, update the schedules, and monitor and prepare for claims during closing. So you set up yourself, you prepare yourself during those 2 stages. That's a long process which runs all through the duration of the project, and sometimes beyond the completion of the project if it gets into arbitration or claims. So, and if you are a project controls professional, as we saw in the there are so many project controls professionals who joined this meeting today. You probably heard about this already. And for beginners, critical path is probably the most important aspect of scheduling. And critical path it's not, once you set a critical path, it doesn't stay that way. Every update, it changes. So critical path, to define it, it's the longest path of the project that leads to the completion. So the key, as I said, you have to monitor your critical path and see what is on the critical path and how to progress the critical path properly. And it's not just the critical path. So you have to follow, also look at what is the next critical path after the longest path. And you cannot neglect the next one. So you cannot just work on the critical path and expect you to finish the project in time. So you have to watch the other activities also and see, okay, how much time can I delay this one? And how much time do I have to not do this activity? So you have to take care of all that in scheduling. We'll talk about this more when we are talking about maybe in the basic course. But the key takeaway is critical path will be the most important aspect of scheduling. Monitoring that is very important. And again, you must have, if you're a project controls professional, or even if you're just in starting off in construction, or you must have heard the baseline schedule. It is the first stage of any project. You have to set up a plan. You have to figure out how you are going to from point A to point B, and you have to set up your baseline. You have to plan what the sequence of work is, and as a scheduler, you have to, that's your job. You basically run a planning meeting and figure out how to lay out the baseline and lay it out for everyone. And okay, once that is final, once your plan is final, that becomes your baseline schedule, against which you monitor your progress moving forward. So again, this is, we can get deeper into it once we are talking into scheduling, but this is an intro course. Next slide, Jeslin. Yeah. So let's talk about the different roles a scheduler can have on a project. That if you think about a project, there are three key stakeholders on the project. One, the client. The client owns the project. And let's say if you have a construction management team, they run the job for you, for the client. So that's another key stakeholder. And you have a contractor who builds the job, and many a times they have subcontractors who work on different chunks of scope. So if you are a scheduler, or each of these three stakeholders, they have their scheduling team. So depending on the size of the project, that could be one person or more than one person. If it's a big project, large project like Eastern Access, we have like 10 schedulers working on different contracts. So think about this. If there is one project that comes into the fruition from the funding, that's basically three scheduling roles that need to be filled. If there are 10 projects, it's 30 schedulers. So it basically multiplies, it extrapolates. The requirement of schedulers is going to blow up once the funding kicks in and the new projects kick in. So if you are considering a career in scheduling, this is the time you have to consider getting trained and being ready for these roles. So let's say if you do become a scheduler or a planner, these are the key responsibilities as a scheduler you do. You have to understand the contract, the project scope. You have to go through the drawings and specifications. You have to understand the whole project. You have to understand where the key elements of the project are. So that's the first thing I would say any scheduler should do. They have to go through the specifications, drawings, and understand the whole project. And as I mentioned earlier, you have to lead, as a scheduler, you have to lead the planning meetings. You have to sit, you have to bring your project management team together. You have to sit with them and work on building a work breakdown structure, basically take the whole project, break it into manageable chunks, and then create a baseline schedule for you to manage moving forward. You also have to, it's not just the time, you also have to plan your resources needed for completing the project. You have to figure out what the budget forecast is. Once you have a schedule, you figure out how much each task costs, or how much you can get paid for each task. So once you lay that all out, you can prepare your budget forecast and cash flows to plan your invoicing goals for the month. So that's another key aspect schedulers do. And you also have to, as a scheduler, it's your responsibility to present it to all the stakeholders and make sure they understand what the plan is. So every month, that's a recurring task. You have to present it to your management or stakeholders and say, okay, this is where we are, and this is our plan moving forward. And that you have to do that on a regular basis. That's a key responsibility of a scheduler. And as I said, you have to perform your regular updates. Weekly or monthly is preferable. You cannot let the schedule set without any updates for like 6 months. That will be too late. Things change too fast on construction projects. So you have to be on top of it and do the updates to see if you're still on the track, on the right track or not. And if you are in constructions, you know changes happen all the time. Even right from the beginning of the project, you'll start seeing deviations from the contract scope. You'll see changes. So every change may have a time or cost impact, and sometimes both. So every change needs to be analyzed, and you have to incorporate it into your baseline schedule you already have, and see if it impacts the completion date or not. The other key item you should do as a scheduler is maintain a risk log. You have to list all the risks you have on the schedule, and you have to maintain a risk log, whether it is a scope risk, or I'd say it could be a weather risk, or you have to maintain weather logs. In general, you have to maintain an event log for the project to see if any of those events cause any disruption or delay to your contract or your project or to the completion date. And once everything is said and done, if the contractor wants to take you, has any claims after the completion, you do have to do some forensic analysis to analyze claims, and if it goes to arbitration, you'll have to prepare for that. And all the work you did in the past through the course of the project, that all helps you when you're preparing for claims. So that's an important, you have to do all of this on a regular basis to prepare yourself. These are the different tools we typically use used in the industry. The most popular, these are the most popular ones. If you Google for planning tools, you'll see a ton of them. Now there are a lot of app-based scheduling tools now, but the ones listed on the screen are the most popular ones. Oracle Primavera P6, that's probably most widely accepted tool. Microsoft Project, it has a lot of users because it comes with Microsoft Office Suite, and it's not very expensive, so it's more used on IT projects than, or maybe small construction projects. And Asta Power Project is also another tool which has very impressive features, but it's not as popular as Microsoft Project and P6. We also have the Spider project, but it's mostly used in Russia. It's claimed to be a resource-driven scheduling application. That's pretty popular in Russia. Tylos, it's if you're familiar about linear scheduling, Tylos is a linear scheduling application mostly used on piping projects, or let's say road construction, where there are repetitive tasks. So Tylos is based on that concept. And we also have Synchro from Bentley. Bentley, that's it basically used for 4-dimensional scheduling. It takes the schedule information and links it to the building models to see the progress or construction in 4-dimensional view. So as I said, these are the most popular ones. As I said, Oracle Primavera P6, that's probably the most widely accepted one across the industry. Based on some statistics you see online, more than 90% of top engineering firms use Oracle Primavera P6 as their scheduling tool, their preferred tool. It is used because of many reasons. It's a robust scheduling engine. It's a database oriented one, so it keeps track of all the information, and it handles large data with ease. So, and it is also a true multi-user system, meaning it allows multiple users to open the same file and update at the same time, do the updates at the same time, and depending on the type of installation you have on your in your organization. So it allows you to install it locally or on the client server. So if you want to share it with multiple users, so there is a lot of flexibility in that regard. It lets you save unlimited baselines to compare. Once you start making progress, it lets you compare it with your previous updates or the project schedule. So it lets you save unlimited versions of it. And it also enables proper scheduling update, meaning in some applications, let's say, for example, Microsoft project, it lets you keep, there is an activity which is scheduled in the past, it keeps it there. It basically, even though you update the other activities, it keeps it in the past. So it's easy to miss something, but Primavera, once you do the update, it forces you to plan it in the future. So it doesn't let you keep it in the past. So that's the proper scheduling I'm mentioning about here. So that's the key advantage of P6. It's also identified as a preferred tool on many federal, military, or government contracts. That's a big advantage for P6. And it's also considered, currently in the industry, it's considered as a top skill that's required to become a construction scheduler or a project control specialist. Oracle Primavera, I would say, is the most important tool you have out there for scheduling. There are many more reasons. It has a very good superior user interface, customizable layouts, filters, reports, you name it. You basically, you can, if you think of something, you can probably do it in P6. So that's how customizable it is. It does have some limitations though, but it's probably the best we have. And it also lets you customize user rights. And if you want to give access to like a project management profile or scheduler profile, and lets you access certain aspects of the software. And it is mainly based on the Windows desktop version, but it can also be used on Apple iOS. It's also, it can be used on mobile phones or tablets for easy access. And it also integrates with many third-party applications which analyze schedules, or as I said, Synchro, Bentley, which links the schedules to the four-dimensional models, three-dimensional models. So it lets you do that. It has that flexibility. So it's a pretty important tool in the industry, and it's widely accepted as the preferred tool across the industry. Okay, for schedulers, the opportunities are unlimited. It's not just the construction industry which hires schedulers. You basically have opportunities across every industry out there. You have opportunities in transportation, oil and gas, defense and military, mining, facilities management, information technology. And the software development projects also do scheduling. And the construction of data centers is hiring a lot of lot of IT companies are hiring schedulers to manage the data centers construction. Manufacturing also uses scheduling applications. Pharma companies also use schedulers. If you look at specifically to the construction industry, if you look at different roles, you have schedulers, estimators, project engineers, construction managers, and these are the average annual salaries in the United States. And construction scheduler is basically at or on par with the construction managers. That's how important scheduling is and how it is treated in the industry. It is treated as a top skill or a key aspect of project management, and they're well paid for that job. And it actually increases as you get more experienced in scheduling. Your scale also increases. If you look at the chart below, you'll probably, on an average, you'll probably see a $60,000 annual salary, and it increases. It goes up to, let's say, average of $120,000 if you're a senior level scheduler. And those are the average numbers, and it basically based on the experience and skills you have and the types of projects you're working on, you can be paid handsomely. Next one, just as Mike mentioned, I work for MCSS. I've been with them for 9 years. And it's a good company. If you are already a project controls professional, if you're looking for opportunities, get in touch with us. I can get you in touch with the right people to look for opportunities.
Great. Very good. Very good, Raj. That was very comprehensive. I learned a lot as well, and I'm sure our audience did too. Now that we've heard Raj talk about the fundamentals of scheduling, the different software programs, including Primavera, the most popular, and job opportunities, let's hear from our next speaker on different roles a project controls professional can play and how all of this ties into sustainability. Jeslin Vargas is the Director of Sustainability at GBRI and the Director of Project Controls in the Project Controls Division of the Metropolitan Transportation Authority here in New York. He works in the Construction and Development Division, which oversees multiple mega projects in New York City with a combined value of over $50 billion. In fact, Jeslin's the guy who puts together the reports on the capital program of the MTA that the chairman uses when he speaks of the capital program. Jeslin has over 17 years of professional experience in sustainability and project controls. His experience spans planning, problem solving, strategy development, risk assessment, CPM scheduling, performance monitoring, building and managing teams, as well as project management. He's an avid believer in sustainability and social equity. Jeslin brings enormous talent and engineering experience from the many green, residential, and commercial building projects he's worked on, both in the United States and overseas. Jeslin, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mike, for the kind introduction and wonderful job, Raj. I'm sure we all learned a lot from the session that just Raj explored. In fact, I also work for the MTA through MCSS. So Raj and I work for the same firm. In fact, we both went to the same school, Texas A&M College Station. So if there are any Aggies on the group, go Aggies. And so as Mike mentioned, we have, I just want to actually go through some of the roles that project controls specialists can play and want to show, through my experience, what roles I have played. And hopefully I will inspire some of you on the call to join the project controls as a profession. And also I would like to invite you to join our training program, which I will share in a few minutes. So I started with MTA itself, in 2015 as a senior scheduler. And as Raj mentioned, some of the roles that he mentioned, this is what I used to do in ESET Access. We used to look at monthly schedule reviews, contractor updates, looking at the cost and resource. So as Raj mentioned, every schedule is actually a plan of an implement that the client wants to implement. And as schedulers, our job is to make sure that the contractor is performing according to the plan. And that's the baseline, right? And you have progress updates, you compare your progress updates against the baseline and see where are you with respect to the plan, and you create reports. And these reports get circulated to CMs or project managers and senior level executives like Mike. So Mike, Raj and I have been fortunate to work with Mike in different capacities at the ESET Access program. So Mike has seen some of the reports that we prepare. And they use those, senior management uses those reports to make effective decisions. So that is how they can manage the entire program. And we also look at critical path at the scheduler level to understand the near critical path activities and the activities on critical path, whether they are being performed as planned. And finally, looking at changes. As you know, change is the only constant in our lives, and the same applies to even projects. So every project would have a lot of changes. For example, ESET Access had more than 500 when I was last there, and every change needs to be looked at closely. Some changes would be stemming up from field conditions, some from design changes, but we have to look at as schedulers to see how does the change impact our plan. Was this change, of course the change was not in the plan, so how does it actually impact our critical path? And then use that tool, like TIA, for example, time impact analysis, one of the programs that we use to understand the impact of changes. So that's just one role of a scheduler. So that was my role for a few years, and then I moved to a different role called KPI manager. KPIs are key performance indicators, as some of you who are familiar with project controls, you already know. So my job here was to actually create a KPI for the entire ESA program and monitor, and then that is something that Mike and senior stakeholders would actually utilize to see how are each project under the ESA program. So as Mike mentioned, ESA is an $11 billion project with multiple contracts. So with multiple contracts, some of these contracts are $600 million, $500 million projects. So they are like essentially bigger projects. So each project would have multiple schedulers, as Raj mentioned. So you're looking at, and you work with each scheduler to understand what are the key performance indicators of each of those contracts. On one contract, it might be systems, another might be concrete and steel. So from a program level, we need to understand what are those key performance indicators and see what is the health of the project in terms of from looking at monitoring the KPIs. And then I moved to a different role, change management. That is also something that Raj mentioned. Change management at ESA was a huge program where we're looking at each change orders. Some of the change orders would be, I would say, as little as $3 million to as big as $60 to $70 million change orders. So from a program perspective, look at which changes we should look at more closely. When you have so many changes, there are some changes that takes priority over other changes. What are the changes that will impact the critical path? So then that way you can utilize your resources accordingly. And last now, I'm working as a director of project controls with the MTA program, the headquarters. So we look at all the different projects under all the agencies. So Raj mentioned previously that many of the agencies, when he mentioned agencies, there is MTA Long Island Railroad, there is MTA Metro North, and there is also Port Authority, which is not under MTA, but Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. Many of these agencies actually require project controls to use a P6 or Primavera P6 as a program. So we, from a project controls, program controls perspective, we look at all these projects to understand where they are in terms of schedule delays, analyze the workforce, and then metrics and reports for higher ups like Mike mentioned, to the program controls VP, and from there to the chairman. So as you Now, I'm sure you are aware of it, that the role of project controls is inevitable right from the beginning of the project and throughout the project till the closing, because you need someone who should understand the scope of the project, understand what is the project about, understand the key issues in the project, and be the project management function throughout the project lifecycle. Even during the project lifecycle, identify what are the issues, monitor them, so that the senior management can get visibility to the project. And finally, during the closing, that is when you identify the claims, if there are any, and monitor the claims and manage them so that the clients can successfully close the chapter. Now, how does it all tie this to sustainability? So Raj briefly mentioned about BIM. So that is some program that could be tied to some of the scheduling programs. So when you use, so the whole idea of sustainability is to make sure that we complete the project with as little impact as possible. That is one. And B, we ensure that the triple bottom line, that is the planet, the profit, and the people, there should be balance in all three. How do we get a balance? And that is where, if you use a powerful program and if we can manage it effectively throughout the project lifecycle, that is when you can truly embrace sustainability in your project. If a project is delayed, that is more impact to the economy, more impact to the planet, and more impact to the stakeholders. So if you can stay within time frame as planned, that is when you can optimize the project. So on the screen now, you're looking at also reporting function of project controls. Reporting function allows you to see how are projects doing in terms of key performance indicators, not only just from the performance point of view, but also from environmental standpoint. So here you're looking at top 10 projects that were awarded in the under the AIA. The greenest projects in the US. This is from last year, 2021. We created this dashboard using Power BI under the program. So these are all different programs you can use to visually engage stakeholders to show how much am I spending on a project? What is the impact in terms of carbon emissions? How much water is my project conserving? How much energy? And then you can compare it to the baseline or other projects. All that things could be actually done through project controls. So with that, let me introduce to some of the programs that Raj is going to teach through GBRI, which I'm very excited. As Raj mentioned, Primavera is actually one of the hottest programs that industry professionals are seeking. Many of the agencies, including the Department of Defense, they mandate that we use Primavera P6 for scheduling. So Raj is, has agreed to do a session with us. It's a 5 live online session, 12 hours total, where he would be going through all the details. He will start from some of the key terms he mentioned, baseline, critical path, all those terms. He'll walk us through all the basics, plus you will actually understand a deep understanding of the planning concept, the baselines, and also to how to use P6, how to use Primavera, how to master P6 to manage a project. And then he also has some advanced courses like mastering P6 using some of the programs like how to perform TIAs, how to do claims analysis using P6. So everything with P6. So we will actually send more details to all of you after the webinar in a few days. We'll have more details like the price points and of course some scholarships for the folks who are joining today's project to today's webinar. I'm also excited about a program that Mike is going to teach in a few weeks from now. It's in fact a month from now, May 25th. It's a free program. The intro session is free. In fact, as you may agree, the role of project controls is important, and also equally important is communication. Because as engineers and architects, we understand the project, but when we are required to present in front of the stakeholders, communication is key. And so is the role of a mentor. So I was fortunate to have a mentor like Mike. Raj was also fortunate to work with a person like Mike. So Mike is definitely imparting his wisdom through a program that we'll be delivering through GBRI. And the program is called Leaning Forward, Best Practices for a Successful Professional Career. So we will kickstart with an intro session a month from now, May 25th. We will send the registration link again for all of you who are interested to join. And then the training session will start following May. It's a batch of 4 to 5 sessions that Mike is planning to host through this. And I also want to thank our one of our partners, the Project Controls Expo. As Felicia mentioned, I spoke at this Expo a couple of years ago. They are the world's largest Project Controls Expo, and right now they are bringing this to the US for the first time in Washington, D.C. I'll be speaking at the session in October. Mike and Raj may also join us, but I invite you all also to check them out. With that, let me now take you to a quick Kahoot. I know we have limited on time, so we'll do a quick Kahoot. So those of you who are familiar with Kahoot, this is your time. So get your phones, smartphones ready, and I may also need Felicia's help really quick to make sure that my screen is visible. 1 second. So as I get ready with the Kahoot, if you have any questions, please feel free to enter them. Right. So Felicia, let me know when you can see my screen.
All right, we
Can
can
you see it, Felicia?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. All right. So let me make sure. Also share the sound. Okay. So we're going to do the classic mode. All right. So those of you who have your smartphone, take your smartphone and go to kahoot.it and enter the pin 9896118. You can also use the QR code if you are unable to go to the kahoot.it. So as I speak, I'm also going to do the same thing. Kahoot.it. And okay, I can already see folks are joining. Very good. Jackie, Patty, Mally, TJH. 9896118. Wow, wonderful. So we have 118 participants in total. If you cannot join, it is fine. You can also enter your answers to the chat window, because I know some of you may not have access to a phone right now in front of you, but if you have, go ahead. If you don't have access to your smartphone, you can open a different window on your laptop, or maybe if you have another screen, you can do that too, and use the same thing. You can go to the kahoot.it and enter the pin to join. Okay, so I am going to join as Jess. Okay, that's me. Can you hear the audio?
Yes, we can hear the music.
Okay, perfect. All right. Well, I see Felicia, I see Mike. So we have 41 players now. So let's give a couple more minutes. We'll see if we can. Yeah, we got Rajesh also, Martin, Jack, Custom. Once we hit 50, we'll get it going. And others can also, of course, join.
Yeah, I shared the game pin in the chat. So if you want a little later, once we get started, you can still join.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Felicia. All right. All right, perfect. We have 52 now. Okay, let me get started. Others, if you're still joining, don't worry about it. You can keep joining. So I'm going to do start now. 52 players. Let's start it. Let's bring the competition. 3, 2, and 1. This is a simple one. What is one word that comes to your mind when you see or hear the word planning? Just one word. You can enter it. What do you think about the word? What is that word comes to your mind when you think about planning? All right, let's see what everyone thinks. This is like mind reading. So I can see that schedule is the top one here. This is the biggest one. That is what most of you think about when you think about planning. Very good. And then scheduling is also there, so maybe we should actually combine them both. Wonderful. So now you know how to play the Kahoot. Let's go to the next question. how big is the federal infrastructure bill? So did Mike mention it? Is it 50 billion? Is it 500 billion? Or is it 750 billion? Or is it 1 trillion? And the correct answer is 1 trillion. And let's see who is doing good now. There's JJ who is leading. So now you know how this works. And there is Eamon who is 948, AH 954, and Dennis at 956. So let's hope that from this point on you understand how this works. Now you know the faster you hit the button, you get a higher point. Schedule is a project management tool which communicates which of the following: what needs to be done, who will perform, when, is it what, who, or when, or is it all of the above? And the answer is all of the above. Wonderful. So we have 42 correct answers here, and let's see if JJ is still maintaining it. Oh, JJ just lost it to AH. And we have JJ. Good job. All right, so let's keep going. True or false? Almost every sector needs schedulers. Is it true or false? True. Almost every sector needs schedulers, as Raj mentioned. And here is our podium. So this is a quick Kahoot. I knew we didn't have too much time. So we have Mike in third. We have JJ on second. And we have, drum roll, AH number 1.
Good job.
Thank you so much. Good job. And then we have Dawn at number 4 and Eamon at number 5. Thank you again for joining our Kahoot. Let me now stop it here and bring it back to our screen. And all right, so I'm back. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. All right, so thank you so much again for joining our session. Let's now take our Q&As. Mike, anything else you want to add? Let me see if any.
Nope. Nope. Well done. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Yeah, so we have so many. Do you have any questions, Felicia, that we haven't answered, or?
Yeah, so we did have 2 come through the Q&A. See, they might have actually been answered in the session.
Okay, I see. So there's one question over here. From the 3 roles as a scheduler you touched, can you elaborate on their interactions, and as they adjust between each other's schedules, which one will prevail and have the most weight? Well, that's a very interesting question. So Raj, do you want to take that one? So the three roles you mentioned, one is actually the scheduler with the client, the scheduler with the contractor, and the scheduler with CCM. The question is, can you elaborate on the interactions, and as they adjust between each other's schedules, which one will prevail? Who will prevail and who will have the most weight?
Sure, Jeslin. So the 3 roles I mentioned, we have schedulers from the client side, we have schedulers from the contractor and the CCM side. They're all on one team. Their end goal is to have a successful project. So there is no question of who will prevail. The schedule should have the actual information And as long as you have the right information in the schedule, you should be able to convince or present it to all the stakeholders in a way they understand. So all three schedulers from all three stakeholders, you have to work hand in hand. You may have to interact on a daily basis or a weekly basis to make sure you have the right schedule, which tells you what your forecast will be. So there is no question of who prevails. So it's just a team working, all working towards a successful project.
So thank you, Raj. I really like the answer about an approved schedule prevails. When you have an approved schedule, that is what all the schedulers have. The client's interest is the best interest. That's the project's in the best interest of the project. The schedulers work together. I love your response. I'm also curious about this, Mike. What is your perspective, working on in a senior role, when you have schedulers from all over the site, like one from the client side, one from CCM, one from contractors? Have you ever seen conflicts and friction, and how? What is your take on that?
Yes, quite often that is the case, Jez. Depending on the stakeholder, they view projects and risks somewhat differently. So it's no surprise that the schedules that they create reflect some differences. So what I've seen done in the past, and Eastside Access, frankly, is a great example. Years ago, we had 3 schedules from 3 different entities. And what was decided is that we would utilize each of the schedules and create an early finish, a target finish, and a late finish date. And that satisfied all of the stakeholders. So that was just one way that I've seen that addressed. Now, at the project, like an individual contract level, you may not want to go to that extreme. You probably want to get the schedulers in a room together and come up with a collaborative agreement on what the schedule should reflect. So 2 different ways to address it depending on the circumstances.
Thank you, Mike. There is one question from David here. Are there any IT scheduling systems that can provide key performance metrics pertaining to earned value management? Raj, do you want to take a stab at it? And then I can. So are there any IT scheduling systems that can provide key performance metrics pertaining to earned value management? So the way I'm understanding this is, are there any programs that are there that will provide any metrics that relates to earned value?
Primavera P6 lets you do earned value management too. It gives you the earned value information you need to do to generate the metrics you're asking about. And is there any specific IT system? Every one of the schedule tools out there, they give you information that is required to calculate those metrics.
Thank you, Raj.
Sure.
Yeah, I think definitely the answer. I feel like the fundamentals is what we need to focus on here. The earned value management. What is the earned value? What are the metrics? The plan value, the schedule value, the SPI, the CPI. So as Raj mentioned, most programs has the capability to calculate all these things. And if you're interested more, that is one of the topics that he will be covering in the training. He will go through each of the KPIs, which fall under the earned value system, the SPI, the CPI, the plan value. You'll have different nomenclatures. If you're familiar with PMI, it may be called as budgeted cost of work performed or budgeted cost of work scheduled, so work planned. So all those terms tie into then the formulas of what we need to find out the KPIs in terms of earned value. And most programs, of course, P6 has the option where you can, in the back end, you can actually determine how you want to calculate those two. You can do a user-defined KPI also on the back end. And so all those things will be covered in the training that Raj would be going over in the next few weeks. is a consolidated repository of risk log location-wise maintained somewhere, like sub-zero temperature in countries like Russia? I'm actually not able to understand it. It's a consolidated repository of risk log location-wise maintained somewhere. So Gaurav, can you expand it further? Or I don't know, Raj, are you able to follow it?
I would say risk logs are created. They should be project specific. Every project will have different types of risks. As it's mentioned, a project in Russia with sub-zero temperatures will pose different types of risks than a project in Texas with temperatures in more than 90 degrees Fahrenheit for most of the year. So it has to be created project specific. And I don't think there is a consolidated repository of risk log available somewhere.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you again, Rustam, for your feedback from Kazakhstan. I'm glad you enjoyed the refresher course from us, and I also see that you did your college here or graduate school here in Illinois Tech in Chicago. Wonderful, in civil structural program. I hope you will be able to join one of the transportation projects in the US or New York City soon. As Raj mentioned and as Mike mentioned, there are more and more projects coming with the infrastructure bill. Of course, all around the US, you will find these new projects, be it in the West Coast or in the East Coast or in between, in everywhere, you will see more and more projects coming along. And from our experience, we feel that there is a huge need for schedulers, and that's one reason why GBRI is also planning to create courses. With that said, I hope you can join us in the next few months when we debut these training courses. This will be all live training sessions that Raj will be offering. And in fact, Felicia may send a questionnaire to you all to understand what is the best time for you to participate in these sessions. If it's 12 p.m. Eastern time or after work, because we are in New York City, and I know that participants were able to join from around the world. We would love to know your preference and what is the best time you would like to join. What are some of the topics that you would like to learn in project controls? That way we can identify the gaps and we can share whatever we have learned from working on these projects. We have courses on KPIs, we have courses on earned value management, we'll have courses on dashboard designs, Power BI. So we have all those elements that we could share, but we would like to know what is that you would like to learn and the time frames, and that will help us design the courses and deliver it more efficiently. Anything else, Mike, Raj, or Felicia, you want to add?
No, thank you, Jess.
Thank you, Jeslin. Thanks everyone for joining us today. It was a very nice webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to remind everybody that we will be sending a follow-up email within 24 hours. That will include your certificate of completion and the details needed to self-report your credits for LEED or WELL CE. So just keep an eye out for us.
Thank you so much, Felicia. On behalf of GBRI, I'm going to take this opportunity to thank Mike and thank Raj and also, of course, Felicia for helping us with this webinar. I'm very excited that this is our first webinar, as we mentioned, on project controls. I hope this is just one among many in this topic. And I hope that you can all the participants today, I hope you can leave a feedback on this webinar. You can, when Felicia sends the email out, you can also share your comments and feedback, and that will greatly help us when preparing future webinars. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your week.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.